Today's topic is whether Taiwan will be Nancy Pelosi's next stop during her Asia trip. Official announcement about her trip to Asia includes Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and Singapore, but Taiwan is not included. China's Taiwan province is not on her schedule. However, the whole world is watching whether she will fly to Taiwan. China has expressed over 6 times that China will take action opposing her visit to Taiwan. Still, Nancy Pelosi decided to visit the island. According to Taiwan's newspaper, Taiwan already recalled the invitation for Nancy Pelosi. However, the latter became very angry, very disappointed, and she insisted on visiting the island. It's funny that Taiwan is part of China. However, the so-called Taiwanese president cannot even say no to a U.S. politician, a House Speaker. So last time, a legless lady from U.S. Congress visited Taiwan. That lady lost her legs in Iraq. Still, she went to Taiwan promoting the so-called U.S. freedom and democracy at the expense of people on the island. Compared with Tammy Duckworth, Nancy Pelosi is a little different. She has legs, and not only does she have legs, she also has the will to mess up things in Taiwan. Now we want to discuss why and who is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi stands for what kind of interest groups in the United States. So what does she want to achieve? What are her political and personal gains? Taiwan is in trouble. Everybody knows Nancy Pelosi is famous or notorious for being an insider. Her husband makes millions, hundreds of millions of dollars each time whenever she creates trouble globally. Then why? So why Taiwan? Because the United States wants to create chaos and turmoil in Asia to drive money from Asia to the United States. After the crisis in Ukraine, capital escaped from Europe. Where are those investors going to? Where are those investors going? To the United States or to China? We don't have exact numbers, but China and the United States are two destinations for those risk-averse capital. Now the United States is in big trouble. High inflation, energy crisis, social instability, and a lot of things. So it wants to solve its problems. And to solve the problems, it needs money. Where are the money from? So many people may say the United States can print money. They can print US dollars out of thin air. But that kind of trick is not valid all the time. And the US is facing trouble now. If they want to harvest the world again, it will not be that easy because of China. China is a heaven for capital worldwide because China stands for hope. China is the future. If the US wants to reap the world, harvest the world, they need to create trouble for China. So most people will feel China is at risk. So foreign investment will leave China for the United States. Since Biden became the president of the United States 1.5 years ago, he has been trying to seek help from China's President Xi Jinping. But his counterpart in China, his Chinese counterparts, never agreed to meet him. It means the US is no longer that powerful as before. And China is becoming a major rival or the only competitor on all fronts. Even if the US printed tons of money after the COVID pandemic, still it has an inflation of 9.1%, meaning its GDP growth is zero or even negative in the past month. So its economy is shrinking. It has huge problems. Now, if the U.S. wants to drive money out of China to save the United States, it has to create trouble for China. It has to create instability across the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan is the only factor that China will not compromise with any country. And playing the Taiwan card is the only valid weapon the U.S. can employ to weaken China. Interestingly, when Nancy Pelosi announced stealthily that she would visit Taiwan in August 2022, Joe Biden only mentioned that the military does not believe it is the correct time for Nancy Pelosi to visit Taiwan against China's will. Will Joe Biden ask her to cancel her trip? Biden has his own trouble to deal with. He wants to press China. He wants to pressure China to cooperate with the United States. So, Biden and Nancy Pelosi are two different sides of one same coin. Nancy Pelosi wants to provoke China, and Joe Biden pretends to disagree with her. They are playing different parts for the same purpose. Now, let's see. Will China fight or keep quiet? Will China mainland block Taiwan and announce Taiwan as a non-fly zone? Will China take action? Will China and the United States have a war? The answer is very difficult. It's very difficult to answer this question because it demands wisdom of the Chinese leaders. Why Nancy Pelosi dares to visit Taiwan despite China's live fire drills? The first time ever in almost 25 years. So after the Taiwan Strait missile crisis in the 1996, which almost solved the Taiwan issue. So we don't think we are in the position to answer this question, whether China and the United States will have a direct hot war, a regional war between these two world powers for the visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan. We're not in the position to answer this question, but we can guess. We can say it is a game. It is a game of two world powers. It is a tale of two superpowers. It's China and the US are two players, or China and the US are the two important pillars of the world. The world now has two superpowers. The United States is no longer the only one. China is now the second, and it may become the number one. It may become number one soon, in 5 or 10 years. Then, when is game over? Even if there's no war, no fight, no confrontation between China and the United States after Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the U.S. will continue to provoke China to show the United States is still a dominant power in world affairs. So other followers, other small nations will not side with China. Then, when will the game be over? When will the United States begin to admit China is invincible, China is unbeatable, China is undefeatable? Only when China is more powerful, more wealthy, only when China becomes the world number one economy and at least the second biggest military power in the world. We believe China now is already number two military-wise, and in Western Pacific area, the so-called Indo-Pacific area, China is already number one, and in the first island chain, no other nations can defeat China, and the United States knows it. That's why the two militaries, the Chinese PLA and the US military, had several rounds of negotiations and communications, trying their best to avoid misunderstanding. So we believe there will be no direct conflict between China and the United States. Even if Nancy Pelosi really visited Taiwan. Will she visit Taiwan? 50-50. And most likely, she will. She's already 82 years old, and she has lived long enough, so she doesn't care. And she knows the Chinese PLA will knock down her plane from the sky. It's only our guess, and in several hours we will see. It's a play. It is a game. We are watching the most dramatic event in 21st century, and very likely something unexpected might happen if some forces cross the Taiwan Strait. It might be China mainland, it might be the United States, and it will never be the Taiwan authorities. It does not have any power, and it does not have any capability to exert any influence over China mainland or the United States. It's not even a bargaining chip between China and the United States. Still, we will see what will happen in several hours. I hope I am wrong this time. And Nancy Pelosi will not fly to Taiwan. That lady wants her husband to make more money out of the turmoil in Asia. Both the husband and the wife will be busy on August the 3rd. One will mess up things in Taiwan. Another already did something bad for drunk driving at the age of 82. Before ending this video, we want to mention one thing, because one viewer asked us where the girl is. The girl is on DFTW Classic, and all the videos with Clara's voice will be posted there.